welcome back to Sunday Reads with Renee. My name is Renee, and today I'm going to bring you a double book review of two books that I hope to become more of that twice a month book review staple here on my channel with Sunday Reads with Renee. Before I begin, though, I'd like to thank everyone who has subscribed to my channel thus far and viewed my videos. It truly helps my channel grow, and I appreciate everything that everyone does here to watch my videos, subscribe, and share them. So before I begin with these book reviews, I want to let everyone know too that because it is the month of October, I'm going to be focusing more on Halloween or spooky type of reads because it is, of course, Halloween season. And I really wanted to focus that because I do like the spookiness, and fall is a great time for that, I feel, as well, not just because it's October and Halloween falls on that. So you're going to be seeing double book reviews on spooky horror type entries as well as recommendations for that, including topics. But before I get into the book reviews, I wanted to let everyone know that these books that I'm going to be discussing, When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole and The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, are horror-filled books with a lot of blood and violence. Therefore, they're going to be detailed a little bit there if you ever read them, if you haven't yet. And also, I'm going to be revealing plot details, so spoilers are ahead. For my first review, it's going to be When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. When No One Is Watching is a 2020 mystery thriller novel that marks Alyssa Cole's departure from romance novels as she enters into an entirely different genre. And I really enjoyed this book because it deals with the themes of structural racism and gentrification, all set in the backdrop of a horror-like mystery scene with plenty of thrills and chills in a historic Brooklyn neighborhood. One of the things about this novel that I really enjoyed is the fact that it does give that great social commentary, because it's all about this young woman named Sydney who, after a divorce, returns to her childhood home in a historic Brooklyn neighborhood, only to find that it's completely gentrified. All the black and brown residents have been forced out and replaced by white people who are a bit aggressive in their racist undertones. And what is really great about this book is that it provides that social commentary to the real issues we see today, where a lot of neighborhoods are becoming gentrified and pushing people out. And we also see a lot of structural racism taking place in many of these neighborhoods too. But one of the things I like too is that we have Sydney trying to write a tour that focuses more on the Black and Brown resident lives that have been in this historic neighborhood to counter the tour she went on, which featured a more white centric look and view of the neighborhood. And she really wanted to counter that because it feels like an erasure of Black and Brown people who have lived in that neighborhood and contributed to its success. The thing about this book that really brings in the mystery thriller element and is a little bit of a slow build up that works well for more of those heart pounding, intense moments is that it does deal with mysterious disappearances. Suddenly, as time goes by, Sydney starts to notice, some of my neighbors are disappearing and vanishing suddenly. They're also getting arrested for things I don't understand. And she really dives well into this mystery, aided by her white neighbor Theo, who has secrets of his own, just as Sydney has a lot of secrets that she reveals in the novel. I also liked the character of Sydney. I felt she was a confident, strong-willed, determined young woman who truly wants to find out what's happening to her neighborhood. She cares about what's happening to it. She doesn't like seeing what's become of it. And more importantly, she doesn't want to see her neighbors go vanishing and wants to solve that mystery desperately. She's a very strong-willed individual, determined, still recovering from her recent divorce from an emotionally abusive ex, but she's determined to do what she has to do to solve the mysteries and find it, which all leads to a completely bloody finish, which I felt was perfect. A slow build-up, of course, but perfect end to the novel to fit in with the social commentary and deal with the mystery thrilling parts, which really make this a great read in all general because it has all those elements. Mystery, thrill, suspense, a little bit of horror, so it works perfectly well with that. I wasn't too big on the character of Theo, though, because I felt, he had a purpose in the novel, and in my opinion was more as the white ally who does genuinely care about Sydney and wants to help her, but I didn't feel like he was needed entirely and he could have done without, or you could have replaced him with a different character. But he serves his purpose. They had, I think, a decent relationship. They connected okay, so I think it worked fine in that regard, but I didn't really gravitate to him too much, but he served the purpose of what was needed. All in all, I do recommend this book as a great mystery thriller. Again, it is a slow build up, but it works well. It has a social commentary on gentrification, structural racism, as well as medical mixed use, to use a little bit more YouTube friendly words. And also, it deals with a lot of secrets that both Sydney and Theo hold, and they kind of connect and rely on each other to keep those secrets, but also reveal those secrets too, which I think are very essential in some ways to developing their characters and adding more to the horror element. But I also could see where they might have been done without that, but it worked well within the scope of this novel. So I do recommend it as a good mystery thriller read if you like slow build-ups, heart-pounding, intense moments to that. So I do recommend When No One Is Watching. The next one is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a 2020 horror novel about four men of the Blackfeet Nation who find themselves the target of an Elk Head Spirit out for revenge. This is a blood filled violence horror novel that focuses on the subjects of revenge as well as Blackfeet legends that I highly enjoyed. The book starts off with a Blackfeet man named Ricky who's leaving a bar when he comes across the elk and is later found to be brutally unalived. Three of his childhood friends are also finding strange occurrences happening them when they encounter the same elk, and it's only discovered until later in the novel why this particular elk is haunting them. And the reason for that is because it's learned that years ago, when these four men were teenagers, they came across a herd of elk and decided, for whatever reason, to commit acts of violence on some of the elk. And one of the elk ended up being a pregnant one. And so, what they did was stick to Blackfeet culture and traditions by using all of the elk mother, but burying her unborn child. Unfortunately, this elk head spirit didn't really like that, and so now they're out for revenge against these four men, along with committing acts of atrocities against their loved ones. I found this to be a very spine chilling novel, though, because it's filled with a lot of blood filled violence while incorporating a lot of the horror tropes you see, such as the final girl trope, which comes a little bit more towards the end of the novel. But it also deals a lot with revenge and trauma, as well as attacks and strange happenings that occur within this novel, especially on the loved ones of these four men who the Elk's Head Spirit wants to get revenge for the wrongdoings by any means necessary. What I liked particularly about The Only Good Indians is that it does combine Blackfeet culture and tradition with horror and violence. And it does focus on those themes of marrying outside the Blackfeet Nation, living and leaving the reservation, as well as addiction. But it also has elements of estrangement. So they are combining a lot of real life issues that do happen within indigenous reservations and cultures, but they're also adding other elements to it as well, which helps to combine this backdrop of the horror novel genre while also fitting in with elk head spirits and how the elk is seen as in high regard and held to this great esteem in many Native American indigenous cultures, but how these four men deal and grapple with it because now this elk is out for revenge because even though they tried to do right by this elk by using the whole elk after they killed it, they ended up not doing the correct form of path, and as a result, this elk head spirit's out to get them. I also like the use of the elk as a vengeful spirit, which helped to combine that horror element. How the spirit inflicts violence and revenge, as well as on their loved ones, including the fact that it creates all this suspense and buildup that leads to the bloody finish at the end. And the end is very bloody, but also insightful. There's a good build up to it. It works very well. It combines those elements of course, Blackfeet culture and tradition with the horror and the violence and the suspense, which I think work very well. The characters were interesting and the themes really blend together to really make this book a great horror filled novel. I would say it's a pretty quick read. It works very well. And I think it's something that's of interest to anybody who wants to learn a little bit more about Native American indigenous culture, specifically with the Blackfeet, but also people who like the horror genre, because from what I read about Stephen Graham Jones, he is very much interested in that horror culture, but he also likes to combine it with his Native American culture too. So I think it works very well combining those elements together. It's not for the faint of heart, though, so be forewarned when you read this book as well as When No One Is Watching. There is a lot of blood and violence, but it works very well if you really love the horror genre, and I highly recommend them for this spooky season of October. That is my book reviews of When No One Is Watching and The Only Good Indians. Have you read these books? If so, what did you think of them? Are you curious to read them? Please let me know in the comments with full discussions. I welcome all kinds. I've also included links in the description box related to these novels that I read, including why Stephen Graham Jones titled his book The Only Good Indians in relation to a proverb, which is a racial slur against Native Americans, and how he's working to combat that. I thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the notification bell for more videos. I hope to see you again soon. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!